Whoa, okay, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck, Happenings YouTube Atheist Community and Tiny Chat Strangeness. Yes. Anyway, weird night last night. Ouch, rather long. I was feeling quite not well. But anyway, I'm still not right at all, but whatever, that's my problem. I don't know, blood sugar now, it's always something. Who knows what it is. System failure, generally speaking. Oh, I hate these spiders, these damn crab spiders. I hate them. Look at them, nasty. Ew. Ew. Make these horrible webs across the path, and you just can't avoid walking right into it. Anyway, yeah, so last night, it was a weird night. It just didn't, it's just mushing along. Some interesting conversations, not totally useless. Talked to old fan for a while about art, which was nice. Piero came in for a while, and we just cannot seem to find a way to talk about the same subject at the same time. I don't know what it is. Oh, guns, great. Yeah, it was holiday fun. Let's shoot guns. People are insane. Anyway, scarily so. So anyway, yeah, so we were just always talking past, on the wrong subject at exactly the wrong time. I mean, I don't know, it's just bizarre. So I guess there was some value in it in the sense that we didn't agree about anything, I suppose. I don't know, we agreed there's an internet, and it'd be really cool if we could improve the internet, and that somehow we could do that without starving and dying. Yeah, so we agree on that general scope, but everything else we could find very little agreement. Anyway, so, and then after that, I don't know what the hell happened, just blah 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 blah, and God, guns. I mean, really, holiday weekend guns. Who wants to do that? Who wants to be walking around wondering who's shooting at what? Like I have to look around for, bullets whizzing by. Fuckers. Anyway, I guess it's better than arrows whizzing by. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Not your problem. Seems to be my problem here in this local area. Oh, that's a nice little spot in there. Maybe I'll go in there and sit down and die later. It's a good place to get shot, so maybe I'll just wait. I don't want the bullets to hit me. Anyway, alright, so then Luddite came in late, and bizarre, I was like ready to bail out, and I didn't know he posted a new video, but anyway, he came in, he was kind of, aggressive, and it's, I don't know if he was on something. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so we went through it again, trying to isolate our disagreement and where the rules violation takes place in terms of whose logic is the flawedest here. And, I just went through the basic explanation that these are the premises I live by, and they're validated by my personal experience in the sense that I am a consciousness. I can testify to what consciousnesses do, and that these are basic premises that have to be accepted. This idea of a negative sensation and a positive sensation. Again, brought up the Benatar asymmetry. Once you accept the existence of the negative, you're almost dead in the water by Benatar alone. Then we got to the real crux of it, which is, again, the desire mechanism, the hunger thing. The hunger thing is what makes the difference. You lose an appetite for something, its value disappears. And that's really what we're talking about, is people's presumptive value, what they perceive in their head as having value. And so what we're not really talking about is the amount of pleasure we derive from life versus its suffering. Because I think if you put those two things on the scale honestly, you'll realize pretty quickly that the sensations of comfort do in no way compensate for the sensations of repulsion and suffering. They're just not going to happen. And what really tilts the scales is the word desire or hunger. And I think he almost conceded that point, that this is a powerful mechanism in terms of declaring people's appetite, establishing this perception, this idea that there's something worth pursuing, investing in, expending suffering to get out of life, because we want to have the meal, and the only way to have the meal is to have the plate and the table, the life. You have to live to be able to eat, and it's this perception that you won't be able to eat if you're not alive to eat kind of nonsense. So anyway, and that led to the ultimate final disagreement, which is basically over who's you're stuck with this subjective interpretation of the value of this hunger mechanism. And he's basically saying all natalists, all pro-lifers are basically saying that somehow they have the right to impose, that they have a right to invest somebody else's welfare in their subjective perception that the menu is adequate, is worth eating, that the food is desirable, the food called a life. And we didn't finish the argument because he left the room, or he had a connection problem or whatever the thing was, but he disappeared at that point in the conversation. It ended. So I basically just declared victory because there's not much else to do. But anyway, I would argue that the first crime is that of the natalist. They're the ones presuming the authority to play God. I only have to act. I only become engaged in this warfare, this battle, because of their first act of aggression. And the only way to fight a God player is to play God. This is the syndrome of God playing. You can only stop God playing by playing God. So I got no counter argument to that simple argument that the first cause is on the natalist to justify. They're the ones committing the first cause act of invasion or trespass or arrogance, however you want to describe it, of obliging somebody to invest in their judgment. And clearly I come in as a second cause player saying I have to correct for their aggression. So my need, all necessity for me to make this video, to make an argument, to explain the importance of it, to explain the warlike nature of it, the winner-take-all nature of the question, my need to do all of that is precipitated by the actions of the first causers. If they quit creating the mess, I don't have to show up saying I must clean it. It's that simple. And so there was no counter-argument to where he gets a superior authority to be the first cause initiator. So at best, these natalists, all they can do is claim, a right to impose that somehow is equal to my right, at least, to impose on them, to say, no, you can't do that, you can't impose. And at best, they can only argue that my right is just as valid as their right. But I would certainly argue, since their cause is the first cause, that they're obligated to do more, that they have to come to a higher standard for their imposition, because they're the ones essentially waking me from my rest and obliging me to come over here to stop their rape. The rapist has the higher obligation than the person interfering with the rapist. That's just the way it is. The first causer, the first actor, the first instigator has the burden. And the argument they're going to make probably is some kind of I didn't do it, the DNA did it, or nature does it, or the Big Bang did it. But clearly, once you have a rational, functional human brain that's been 20th century educated, you have no excuse to start blaming dumber instruments than yourself. So that's just bullshit. Oh, that was a lot of work. Sorry, I didn't mean to make the video now, because I'll probably make a response video to his video, but his video was made, it seems obvious, before he went to Stickham, so that likely changes the meaning of it. Probably, mostly, I would bet. Some weird ass chicks up here. I guess that's part of their exercise. They're doing exercises while they walk, I guess. Their arms are going around and up and down. And it looks quite silly. But anyway, maybe I walk slow so I don't have to embarrass them entirely. What do you think? Probably can't walk slow enough. Well, we could try to walk very slowly. Maybe I could go to the bridge. That'll slow me down. Anyway. I'm just too old and tired for this shit. So anyway, that was an interesting hour or so. So I mean, maybe I'll try to isolate that part of the MP3 if I get time and post it as a separate MP3. Just because it does get to the crux of what part of this is provable and what part it isn't, which is sort of an important question, because in the comments on his video, that part will probably be more interesting than responding to his video, be responding to the comments, because there are a few real winners in there. And there's a part where he rags on my point that philosophy is science, or science is philosophy, however you want to look at it. Philosophy's job is to pick up where science limits itself. Science basically says, okay, we're not going to go to these places that aren't about material things. Science just runs away. As soon as something isn't about energy or matter, science just kind of says, I don't want to hear about it. But there is a truth that needs to be revealed that's just as important as the truth being revealed by discovering evolution or some other process that is dissected out of reality. And this value stuff is a really important function of truth describing. And again, the reason why I think these nihilists, and they are generally speaking nihilists, wish to negate the existence of this logic that exists, the rational conclusions regarding value, and establishing that there really is no coherent way to defeat the basic statements regarding the value of sentient experience. You can't make a coherent defense of the idea that it wouldn't matter if I created a planet and put 6 million things on it and tortured them forever versus a planet where they eat ice cream forever. Obviously, that makes there'd be no reasonable paragraph or sentence you could compose that could in some way say, in spite of how insanely insane that seems, it somehow is sensible or reasonable to negate the existence of the suffering sentient emotion and say it doesn't mean anything, that it's just as good as the pleasure is just as good as the pain. It just doesn't make any rational, there's no way to make that make rational sense. As a statement, it's completely contrary to my personal witness testimony. As a sentience, I am informed by my sentience that there's no way I can say there's no difference between me suffering and me being comfortable. The difference is glaring obvious and substantial. And any philosophy that would say I'm negating it can't be rationally coherent with my testimony, with my own personal experience. It is incoherent, incompatible with the truth I know through experience. So I think you have to concede the existence of value through the fact of your own sentience testifying to you of the truth of it. It's unavoidable. It just is. And so you have to deal with it. To pretend, you can pretend it doesn't exist, that it's just something we make up, that we have no evidence that there's a difference between suffering and feeling comfortable, would be idiotic, having personally experienced it. So people like Gary Edwards and the rest of these nihilist fucks have no leg to stand on in saying these aren't questions of truth. They are questions of the truth, and as so, they are to be extracted from reality. We reveal truth, we do not make it up. So they're truths to be discovered. Not just made up. Hey, pup.
Morning.
So that's the obligation. Pit bulls, I hate pit bulls. And such. So forth and whatnot. I think that about covers it anyway. Sorry, this turned into a video in terms of it turned into argumentation that I didn't intend to get into. But there wasn't any news in the atheist community beyond the fact that I am doing this philosopher roundtable thing. And so far, it's worked out really pretty good. And we're moving into the second round on the first subject, which is free will. And yeah, it's been good. And a little bit of lag. I don't know, Zombie Picture Show hasn't made his video yet, so maybe he's vacationing for the weekend. So maybe I'll change the order. But anyway, yeah. It's going to be one of them days. I feel it in my area, of my feeling area. I have a modern mystic comment to deal with too. Put one of them squiggly faces after his comments, which I don't even know what it means. The water's a little bit hazy. Can't quite see as clearly as one should. Anyway, to later and such. Yeah, I'm leaving. Yeah, here I go.